Hello, I'm here with Jeremy Fields, Senior Director of Cloud Ops, and Cheerag Patel, DevOps Manager at SAP NS2. Fellas, thank you so much for taking the time with me.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for meeting with us.
So let's start out with what SAP NS2 does. Jeremy?
SAP NS2 is the federal sector of SAP. So we are a subsidiary company of the SAP parent. We are wholly owned. We have our own board. We control ourselves as far as the company goes. However, we take the SAP portfolio holistically, whether it be on-prem or cloud. We take those and then we provide those to the government through multiple agencies, all the way from state and federal, local government, all the way through FedCiv, DoD, and the IC community.
Whoa. I bet there's some significant complexity going on in those operations.
Extremely.
So, DevOps might be a way to help those organizations become more streamlined, more agile. Let's talk a little bit about what DevOps means to each of you. Cheerag?
So, going off what he said, where we work in our group with DevOps is, we take a lot of those SAP applications that are pre-built, pre-packaged, and then putting the compliancy wrapper, the security that we need around it. So there's a lot of development work that goes into, well, how do I deploy this app to make sure it's still secure? How do I deploy this app in an environment that may not have proper accessibility from the outside? So we do a lot of the work of taking all of that, ingesting that code, wrapping it up together, and then presenting a platform to our customers for our cloud offerings.
Jeremy, DevOps at your level.
So at my level, DevOps means the blending of development and the operations team together. That way we can achieve velocity at actually releasing the code. We have development teams which work through Chef and a myriad of other tools in order to automate our platform layer. And they work hand in hand with our operations staff. And we like the fact that in the DevOps methodology, we can release through the system development lifecycle, make sure that it's secure, make sure the code is good, but then the developers also integrate with the O&M teams to understand what happens with that code and how does the code actually work in a production environment.
So we talked about getting the code to production environments and then the compliance aspects of that. You're working with a myriad of government organizations who undoubtedly have their own very specific sets of compliance and security requirements. So when you're trying to speed up release cycles, you're trying to move faster, you're bringing people together to collaborate. How do you ensure that you also have compliance within that workflow? Maybe start with you.
So we look at it from a holistic approach of we looked at compliance from day one. A lot of folks that we've spoken to, what they do is they build their environments and then put the compliancy in towards the end, which can cause a lot of trouble with, okay, we've built our environment, we put compliancy in and everything broke. We took that and said, let's flip that on its head. If we start building things with compliancy in mind from day one, it will probably and should make our lives a lot easier. And over the past year, that's proved itself, tenfold. Where we've said, we're going to build this secure from the get-go, and we're going to use a lot of our tools. Chef's actually been a great partner for us to do that, where we've said, okay, we need to build this compliant, this in specific ways, with our security, encryption requirements, things like that, and said, okay, well, day one, we're going to see what we can put in, and then from there, we actually take that and run with it. So we've taken a lot of the controls ahead of time and said, here's how we're going to take them in and move those up.
And implement them at the outset of the workflow as opposed to at the end of the workflow.
Exactly.
So how do you take these DevOps principles, including bringing compliance into at the initial beginning of a given pipeline or process? How do you take practices like that and get everybody on board, especially when you're dealing with complex environments, teams that may not have worked this way before? Jeremy, talk to us a little bit about kind of inspiring and driving that change.
What's been great at SAP NS2, we holistically are dealing with the cloud product set, is that we've built our organization from the ground up in order to bring across the SAP cloud portfolio. While building that organization, our GM has basically pushed down to us that we won't have silos. DevOps is really a methodology by which we use across the board. Our security teams, our operation teams, our dev teams, they all sit in the same room. We have a NOSC. Our infrastructure teams, they all sit in the room with us. If we need somebody, all we have to do is turn around, figure out where that guy sits, and go talk to him. When we create our scrums, when we create our teams, and we're going through our agile methodology, we have representation from each one of those teams in the room. They're giving us feedback. They're letting us know that, hey, you dev guys, what you're doing is not going to make sense for ops. Or the infrastructure guys, maybe they want to roll out a new tool, and the ops guys are like, hey, that doesn't work. The dev guys come back and say, well, we like it. And so then we sit down and we discuss, what are the problems? What's good? And we do that during our planning phase. That way, when we're rolling out our development takes all that into consideration up front.
That's awesome. Those are some great practices. Appreciate you folks sharing those with us and taking the time with me today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.